And so here we are, episode 5 of my Fall in Utah video series. After being on the go from sunrise to well after sunset the day before, I took it easy for the first part of this day. Although my intention was to finally spend the entirety of the afternoon and early evening chasing golden backlit trees along Cottonwood Canyon Road, what started out as a quick scouting excursion into a nearby canyon turned into an exhilarating wander that was full of amazing light and seemingly endless opportunities to set up my camera for one composition after another. Even though I once again missed out on my original plans, I don't regret letting my curiosity and building sense of excitement guide me to something else entirely. Good morning on day number 5, if I'm doing my math correctly. If I can get this shifted out of 4 high. It was cold last night. It's currently reading 34 degrees on the truck dash, and that's with the sun up. So I'm guessing we were probably around 30 degrees overnight at the least, and it was chilly. Didn't sleep the greatest, but I slept a long time, so overall, I'm feeling pretty good. I will say, if you had told me 10 years ago, as a 35-year-old dude who scoffed at people who camped and hadn't really done anything outdoorsy since he was a kid, that he would be actively seeking out opportunities to sleep in the back of a 4Runner in freezing temperatures, using a camp toilet in said freezing temperatures, that 35-year-old dude would have thought you were batshit crazy. But here I am, which is why I've told many people over the years that as I've gotten older, I realize that I'm never going to say anything as an absolute. I'm not going to do, I am going to do, I'll never blah, blah, blah. Oh, let me just, oh my goodness. Somehow the washboard seems worse. I'll just stop for a moment. Anyways, I have learned over the years that life changes. Life has a funny way of throwing curveballs and doing 180s and pirouettes and all kinds of crazy crap. So I'm waxing a little poetic or philosophical or whatever, but yeah, so we're starting day 5. I was going to do a hike at Lower Hackberry Creek, I think it's called. But I think I'm actually going to run into town. I need to get more water. I'm down to less than a gallon, probably half a gallon of water at this point. I should have picked some up when I went through town the other day. So I need water. I'm getting a little low on food, so I need to stock up on some stuff there. And then probably what I'll do at that point is come back up this way and maybe go ahead and do that hike just to kind of scout it out and see where things are at. And then, crazily enough, like I said yesterday, probably around 2 p.m., the light will start getting really good for afternoon, certainly by 3 p.m. at the latest. So it's coming up on 9 a.m., so I'm not that far away from it somehow. So it's going to take me just about an hour to get into a town to get gas, get water. Hopefully I can find a convenient mart that has some lunch meat or something, because that's the main thing I'm running low on. And then another hour to get back, so that's going to take up a good portion of that time, and then I can get that hike in and get ready for afternoon shooting. So yep, there's your morning update. Exciting as always. So after running all the way back into Page for the sake of saving 53 cents a gallon on gas, plus being able to go to Walmart and do my shopping, I'm back out here at Cottonwood Canyon Road, and it is currently about 1:10 p.m. and you can see that we're already starting to get some really nice glow on those cottonwoods in the background. So I just took my first shots of the day, which seems a little odd, but with needing to run into town, I just decided to skip any kind of shooting this morning and kind of take it a little bit easy. But yeah, let me get you a closer look at some of these colors, because they're pretty phenomenal. And again, with it only being 110, 115. It's only going to get better from here, so definitely looking forward to running around like a chicken with its head cut off, finding compositions. I am still thinking I'm going to head to lower Hackberry Trailhead, unless I just keep stopping and take shots along the way. I've got about, I think 20 minutes left to go down Cottonwood Canyon Road to get to the trailhead. And look at those colors. A little bit more backlit in that direction versus over there, but regardless, it's just phenomenal. So just took 3 or 4 different compositions here and just going to continue on down the road, and looking forward to late afternoon light. You can already see the hillside starting to go into shadow towards the top, so don't have too much longer. Alrighty, I am at Lower Hackberry Canyon trailhead. I started going down the wrong way. Started following the Hackberry Creek instead of the actual trail. What is going on with this? I guess I just got signal. Anyways, so now I need to cross that. It doesn't look too bad. Famous last words. No problem. And this should take me pretty quickly to Hackberry Canyon, which supposedly leads into pretty steep canyon walls pretty quickly. So we shall see. I'm not feeling the most energetic this afternoon for some reason. Don't know why. But from what I understand, the first couple miles of this hike, which is where supposedly the most interesting part of the canyon is, isn't supposed to be too strenuous. Aside from walking through more mother effing sand. My favorite. But it's a pretty area. Not a whole lot of leaves left in here. So I'm curious what I'll find as I get into the actual canyon. So stay tuned. Okay, got another little crossing to make here. Again, pretty shallow. I believe, judging by the fact that it appears there's the start of a canyon right back there, that's where I need to head. So let's find a narrow spot to lazily cross. And I'm assuming we just follow the creek. Doesn't really look like there's a trail up there. So, unless you've done this hike, you know as much as I do right now. I'm tracking my route so I can get myself back if I somehow get myself twisted around. Safety first. All right, a few crossings later, and the discovery of a very faint trail along the creek. Welcome to Hackberry Canyon. I can already feel the cold air blowing out. That is a very nice tree looking back there. Or very tree looking tree. Right there. Let's go up and see. We have a little bit of reflected light coming off canyon walls back there, but that only goes so far. This tree is in a little reflected light. That's a pretty nice little view if I can get the iPhone to darken up. Nice trees back in the distance too, so I might actually be setting up for my first composition here. Why not? It'll be a nice opportunity to catch my breath after walking through all that damn sand and grab some water. Man, I just ain't feeling it right now. I'm gonna tough it out and power through it. So this is roughly the composition I think I'm going to go for. Very roughly. It's going to be a little tighter. Probably won't include, well, I was going to say I probably won't include any sky, but I'm pretty much going to have to. Because I can't get up on any kind of elevation to speak of to shoot down on that tree. But I want to kind of shoot down into the canyon, kind of make sure I'm getting back into there, where you've got some nice colorful trees as well. I'm curious if the light will shift and maybe those ones in the back will get a little bit more reflected light, so we'll just have to see. Right as I get ready to take the shot, wind. So we're waiting for that to die down. I'm using the 24 to 105. I think I've got an F13. Make sure I've got good depth. I've got it set to just shy of 70 millimeters. And I decided, as you can see, to shoot low. And I'm getting the stream or the creek leading into the camera, and I'm actually able to keep the sky out of the shot. So we'll give the wind just a moment here to calm down a little bit, and we'll catch the frame. Really happy with that. I can take the stood up too quick. Got a little lightheaded there. Not my deal today. Anyways, I've got my circular polarizer on the lens, but I'm not using it at full power, so to speak. I actually got it set pretty minimally, and the angle of the light anyways doesn't let me cut the glare out of the water completely. But I'm able to tone it down just a little bit so that it's not quite so harsh with those specular highlights. But you're still getting the texture and the ripples and some of the reflected colors in the water. So I think it's looking really nice, really happy with the frame. So let me pop this off the tripod and show you out the back of the camera. All right, I'll try to hold this steady. The iPhone, as usual, is not doing too many favors to the actual colors. They're a little vibrant. Highlights are a little more intense than what it actually is on the back of the camera. But you can see again, I've got the stream kind of trailing from kind of middle left of the frame back around the corner. Whoops. Let's just do that so we don't hit the screen accidentally. And then obviously the main tree anchoring this left side of the frame against the cliff face with those colored or nicely colored trees in the background. They're a little before peak, but it adds some nice variation. And actually, I think it works pretty well with the kind of yellowish orange trees back here versus that nice warm cliff face up above them. So pretty happy with this first shot in this canyon. Glad I came back here. Barely made it 100 feet before stopping again. So just taking some abstract shots of the ripples coming through here, nothing else but the ripples, with a nice reflection of the warm tones from the leaves and the cliff face and the cooler tones of the sky. I think I got some nice little shots right there. Took the polarizer off completely for this, because I didn't want to cut any of that reflective glare or specular highlights out of the water. That's what's helping provide the contrast in the colors. So let's see if I can maybe go more than 100 feet this time. As I'm walking through here, I'm also trying to be really careful of where I'm stepping, because there's a lot of these really cool patterns and textures in the sand from the ripples and currents. And I might want to photograph some of that. I find the perfect little combination of leaves. That's actually not bad right there. But yeah, some really cool little textures in here. And we'll just continue on. See if we can get around this bend finally. Well, I made it partway around the bend. This place is just beautiful, and the quality of the reflected light right now is fantastic, and I think that's my next target. I'm pointing at the screen, like you can see what I'm pointing at, that right there. So let's get down to the creek's edge and see if we can find a composition. I think this is going to be a wide one to show off that amazing reflected light hitting the canyon wall up above it. That's pretty awesome. Bouncing off from up there above me, way up there. Just that little bit is enough. So, stopping once again after maybe 500 feet this time. All right, well, I can throw that one up on the screen, I guess, but I don't really think it worked out. I couldn't quite get the angle right, and couldn't get the foreground worked out to avoid the shoreline as much as I would like. That had a lot of footprints in it. All right, as I was saying before I stopped recording with other people in the frame, which is a surefire way to get me to climb up and not record. I don't think that shot really going to work out. A, because of the kind of messy bank line or muddy bank, sandy bank, whatever, with the footprints. But also I just couldn't get the angle quite worked out correctly to get as much of the wall I wanted above it and around it without getting in some of these bright cliff faces that were just peeking around the corner in the background of the tree. So you never know, I might get it back on the computer at home and feel completely differently about it, but I'm not convinced that one's going to work out. But now, again, I've barely gone on any further, And there's some trees right back there. They're looking pretty spectacular. Trick will be, this might be a 100 or 400 millimeter shot. I wonder, I've got that kind of poking out in the way if I go over here too much to get a good angle on them. So I might have to just kind of come out in the middle of the creek and set up. It's going to be a little bit tighter shot. I'm not going to be able to include the top of them because, as you can see, come on, very bright cliff face there, but there's some nice detail that you can't see on this view in the lower trunk structures of them that I think should look nice, and they're really nicely lit with that golden reflected light bouncing through the leaves from behind. So let's give it a go. Scared the bejeebus out of me. All good, just a little sandy, a little wet. Since my phone's trying to off itself anyways, let's just show you the back of the camera. So I've got a really narrow frame available. If I go any wider, I'm picking up these little mid-ground branches poking in, and you can't see it on the other side, but there's just off here, there are some evergreens. I've got them just sneaking into the frame, but I think I can minimize them enough to hide it. And I'm going to go ahead and grab this while the wind is calm. You can see that nice kind of wavy, twisted structure of those trunks there. Now there is another tree kind of in between right there, but it's pretty close to those main trees that I'm trying to photograph. It might intrude on the frame more than I like, but I think I can work with it. My other options, I try to get a little closer and shoot with the 24-105, but I think I like this composition. Again, keeping the water in the foreground for some context of the scene. I like the little rock down there, kind of planting the scene. And we'll take a look at focus here real quick. Everything looks nice and sharp. Yeah, that evergreen on the left does encroach in. But I think I'm going to leave framing as is. I can always crop and post a little bit, maybe take some off the top, kind of crop in from that direction to cut off those evergreens and cut off a little bit at the top where there's really not a whole lot of interest going on. So yeah, I think that's another hopeful keeper. Now, apparently, a mile into the canyon, the walls turn from this kind of orangish gold to pretty vibrant red. So I don't even know if I've gone a quarter of a mile at this point with me stopping so much. So we'll get there. We won't. I'm kind of thinking yet again calling an audible and not worrying about getting back up to Cottonwood Canyon Road for the afternoon light that was so spectacular yesterday. According to the forecast, it should be clear here tomorrow. I think I just crossed over and left the trail. So I can always get those shots tomorrow afternoon, whereas right now I'm here in Hackberry, so I might as well take advantage of it, especially since the light is good, and that is not a trail. So I'll just figure this out. But anyways, I'm curious to see if it's anything like Long Canyon along the Burr Trail with the really rich orange and red canyon walls through there that I love so much. So we'll see if we get there. My feet are getting a little wet, so I might be stopping here in a moment, because in my never-ending brilliance of decision making, I brought my water socks. They're in my bag. I did not put them on just to start the hike, even though the guidebook I have mentions you're going to be crossing the creek multiple times. So I think for the sake of my little piggies, I should probably switch into those pretty soon here. I'm wearing wool socks, which dry out pretty quickly, but as much as I'm in and out of the water, my feet have been pretty much wet for the last 45 minutes now, which is not great. So if I can find a nice rock to sit down on, might go ahead and do that. And here I am yammering away, whining about my wet feet, not really paying attention to the scenery around me. Nothing too eye-catching at the moment. You know what? That looks like a nice little seat. So I think I'm going to take care of this wet foot problem. It is beautiful now. No doubt about that. So, more to come, hopefully. How much you want to bet I forget these on the way back? We'll see. Okay. Place your bets. Continuing on. All right. Neoprene socks are in place. My feet are either still getting wet or it's just the cold water making them feel wet. I've had these neoprenes for several years now, so maybe they're losing their effectiveness, but I have a suspicion it's just cold. Anyways, here comes another lovely tree. A mere 100 steps from where I stopped to change my socks. Really liking this little S-curve of reflected light, but there's too much shrubbery on the bank to get a clean shot of the tree from here. So, let's get closer and see what we can wrangle up. That is a fantastic tree. And I'm thinking maybe shoot it from right here. Get in kind of close, maybe like that. Some of the stuff on the bank is still getting in the way. Over on the right. If I come up here, I might get too close. Let's zoom this out a little bit. So yeah, I think maybe right here, right around 75 millimeter, or I could even do a vertical orientation, then I can get the that nice reflected water, or reflected light in the water. So let's give that a whirl. I'm standing in the middle of the creek, so I may not record taking the shot. But I think that's going to work. Good stuff. This is getting kind of ridiculous. I will tell you that none of this is being done justice with the view you're seeing. Maybe I can... Nope, didn't really darken up, did it? But I think this is where we're starting to get into the red part of the canyon, maybe. It doesn't feel like I've gone a mile, but my sense of distance and time is all skewed given how much I've been stopping. And holy cow, look at that thing back there. Come on, come on. Adjust exposure, iPhone. Totally aglow with some backlight or back reflected light. But anyways, I think yet again I've gone probably not even 1,000 feet. I'm going to be taking a shot. Also, I really love these river rocks in the foreground. I'm going to have to play with that. So here we go again. Well, this is not the red section of the canyon yet. I mean, that's a little red up there, but I don't think that's what the guidebook would be referring to. They're talking about brilliant red canyon walls. I just checked my All Trails track to gauge how far I'd come. And it's saying I've gone 6 miles and zigzagged back and forth all over the place. So I don't know what that's all about, other than maybe here in the canyon it's just not able to track accurately. I guess I could check. I am tracking my hike on my Apple Watch. Which appears to have stopped tracking 2 minutes into my hike. So I have no idea how far I've come. Technology is great until it isn't. And we are getting some, come on, exposure. We're getting a little bit of reddish orange up there, but still, based on the description, I ain't buying it. So we're going to keep going. There's a pretty tree ahead of me, but it's in the wrong light, so we're not going to stop for once. I think this is the longest I've hiked in this canyon since I started without stopping. Oh, let's get out of the water. All right, what we got coming up here? Let me patsy hop over the stream. Nice little cluster of color. I don't think it's, well, maybe there's something there. I'll have to get a little closer and see. Some of it's in good light, some of it's not. The joy of walking in here is I'm trying to scan for compositions while also watch where I'm stepping so I don't twist an ankle on a rock or step up to my knee in water. I'm surprised I'm not motion sickness from focusing back and forth. But if you're wondering why my eyes and my head are all over the place, that would be why. Always looking. So that's a pretty cool tree. I just don't know. It's cool enough to shoot great light. Composition would be tough. So I think we're gonna keep going. Here's an example of a scene that very likely will work. but it's too early. So I'm getting all of this super bright rock face in the background. I want to include the entire tree, I get that cliff face. So it's an important thing to note in situations like this, especially with working with reflected light or shifting light. So obviously the light's going to be moving as the sun moves. Just because composition doesn't work on your hike out doesn't mean when you're coming back it's not going to work. It also doesn't mean that compositions that looked like nothing from the other side won't be something potentially, not to say that this is an example, but it's not to say that it won't be a potential composition on your way back when the light is hitting it differently. So again, where it was maybe front lit on the hike out, on the hike back, it might be backlit. Or again, the reflected light may have shifted, so on and so forth. So again, never stop looking. And I'm not gonna stop hiking right now. Well, this is just getting ridiculous. Even from a photography standpoint, like, yeah, great, but this is beautiful. All this reflected light, and you look up here, and you got this tree up on this cliff face, or I guess that's a cliff face you would call it. I want to see if I can get a clean shot of that. That's going to be tricky though. But man, just beautiful. Glad I did this hike. All right, so I think I can get a clean shot of that beautifully lit tree up on that cliff face. I want to move quickly. So no telling if something might interfere with that light. Oh, why? All of a sudden my tripod does not want to come out of this pouch. Been using this for 2 years and never had this issue. Anyways, don't know where exactly the sun is in relation to the opposing canyon wall, so I want to move quicker than slower here to get set up and try to frame this shot with the 100-400. Elevated. I will admit, this trip I've really been wanting a taller tripod. I don't like doing this whole bringing the legs in instead of having them fully out stable. Makes me somewhat nervous. We're going to try horizontal first. Let's see if it's tall enough. Go vertical. This is super sketchy. So this closer canyon wall is just jutting into the lower right portion of the frame here. I don't think I can eliminate it, unfortunately. My other option is if I come down around. But it doesn't appear I have any composition on it at all. There's trees in between once I'm out in the stream or creek, whatever the hell it is. That cornered, or that canyon wall jutting in is dark. And it blends in with kind of a darker base anyways. I might be able to crop it up in a 4.5, but there's some rock detail below the trees up there that I really like that I don't want to lose. So I think I'm just going to do a real basic focus stack, just focus on that little bit of the canyon wall that's jutting in, make sure it's sharp. Everything else isn't sharp, it's more than far enough away. And then we'll see what I can do in post. So I got to move quick, the light is starting to move off of it. All right, we'll see how that turns out. So I just pulled up my location on satellite view on Google Maps, which I've got downloaded. Whoa! Hello, sand. Which I've got downloaded for this entire area, and I'm not too sure about the Red Canyon portion. The guidebook I have talks about after about 1.7 miles, I think it is, the canyon widens out, and that would be a decent spot to turn around and head back. And it looked like I was pretty close to that point. So maybe the author has a different definition of red. That's not red to me. Now, I can throw a screenshot of the map I took. It actually looks like, based on the satellite view, that everything becomes very red right where that portion of the canyon widens out, which doesn't make sense because it was supposed to be red after a mile, a good turnaround spot at 1.7. So I'm not sure, unless I just was looking at it with the wrong scale and it's a further strip of narrow red before you get to the wider part. I don't know. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But regardless, what an incredible little hike. And this thing goes quite a ways. So at some point in the future, when I'm back, maybe in a little better shape, come back in here and revisit. So I think the possibilities in here are truly just about endless. And I'll make sure that I start off with proper water footwear attire. Although I do think my neoprenes are keeping me dry. These are just really cold. Screw it, I'm just gonna walk in the water. So anyways, I got here with afternoon light. So obviously things could be very different. Morning light, bouncing off different sides of the canyon and creating different opportunities from a reflected light standpoint. And of course, again, walking back, I'm just seeing things from a different perspective, literally, since I'm coming at it from the opposite direction. And I'm here in the winter, so it could very well be that if I come back in the spring, the light will be totally different too. So this is a place that I think I could come back many, many times. Not to mention, of course, foliage changes over time, and et cetera, et cetera. So lower Hackberry Canyon. Definitely gets a big thumbs up from me. Now, excuse me, I'm going to go off camera and see if I can hike out of here. Maybe I'll give you a little bit of a taste of what I'm looking at as I hike. Whew. I'm definitely ready to get back to the truck, get to a campsite, make some hot tea and some hot food. I think that's partly why I'm dragging a little bit too, is I'm thinking through what I've eaten today, and it really hasn't been all that much. So, yeah, I think a nice big hot dinner is in order. So, oh, that sounds good. Admit it, you thought I was going to forget the socks. Never would do that. Although I did kind of forget where they were. I just knew they were on a tree branch sticking out, but socks recovered. I can see why the guidebook recommends bringing a second pair of boots. Oh well, they'll dry out. These pants might be none for this trip, but I am back at the trailhead, and I am not going to shoot anymore today. Just going to go find a campsite. Well, all total, today was a pretty darn good day, even though I didn't take my first shot until, what, 1 p.m. or something. But that Hackberry Canyon was just fantastic. I wish I could have made it further down. I did pull up on Google Maps, try to figure out how far I'd gone. None of my tracking was very accurate, even my Garmin GPS satellite thing. But looks like roughly I probably did 1 to 1.5 miles, which should have had me into the Red Canyon. If I only did 1 mile, then no, I would have been right at the beginning of it. But still, looking at the map, it looks like it widens out. Anyways, I'm curious to see if I come back here in the future at some point, what is further beyond, because it looks like it gets red, but it looks like it gets wide, which was not how it was described in the guidebook. Anyways, yeah, I think today was good. I am absolutely wiped out, though. I think it's twofold. I had a pretty strenuous hike. Well, not strenuous, but I did that Cottonwood Narrows hike yesterday, which out and back was 3.5, 4 miles. Can't quite recall. And then this was probably another 3 to 4 miles, let's call, out and back, plus, wandering around, finding compositions and everything. And today's was a much harder hike through sand and sandy bottom of the creek. And then my shoes were soaking wet, so they're heavy, et cetera, et cetera. And also, frankly, this is the most active I've been in a short period of time since really June, given some of the health issues I've been having with my Crohn's disease over the last several months. I actually just started a new medication just over 3 weeks ago. Thankfully, my energy has been pretty good. But I'm just not in the shape I would like to be in. Same as I wasn't in the shape that I wanted to be in back in March when I was primarily at Bryce Canyon. But overall, it's been a really good trip so far. And again, today was fantastic. That canyon, I really could have spent another hour or two in there probably, but I was just getting too wiped out. It was getting really cold as the sun started going down. And I actually got the campsite just with the last of the light. So I'm perfectly content with the decision I made to turn around and start hiking back. By the time I made that final little climb up the bank to the truck, I was beat. Given how I'm feeling right now, and I do think part of it today was I didn't eat enough. I realized I didn't really eat lunch. I just snacked in the car. Didn't really have a great breakfast. Just dry cereal and a few powdered donuts. So that certainly did not help anything today. So I'll see how I feel when I wake up. I was going to stay in this area strictly tomorrow. And if nothing else, just take an easy day. And then get out and do the afternoon shooting along Cottonwood Canyon Road that I quote-unquote canceled today because I did the canyon hike. But if I'm feeling like I am right now, I may opt to drive to Zion, and I'm drawing a little bit of a blank on the scenic drive I want to do. I think it's Collab. It is on the western side of Zion, though, which extends the drive a little bit further. But I usually try to take a day for myself, just kind of sightsee and kind of reset. And I think that's part of it, too. This is day 5, really day 7 since I left the house. And back in March, I kind of had the same thing. Like, got into 5 days in the field, and you just start finding it a little tiring and a little hard to get the creative juices flowing every morning. So it could be a combination of things. But anyways, I think if tomorrow I take kind of an easy day, kind of a touristy day, that'll hopefully recharge the batteries a little bit. And then I've only got one more day. So tomorrow's Friday. Saturday I'll be staying in Page. And then Sunday driving from Page back to Amarillo. And then Monday, Amarillo back home to Fort Worth. So Saturday, I could either get into Page early. I can't check in until 3 p.m. though. Or I can make sure I get up for sunrise along Cottonwood Canyon and get some more final shots. But we'll figure that out when the time comes. And tomorrow we'll figure out when I wake up and see how I'm doing. Get up and moving about. My legs could be sore as hell. And my back's not feeling so great right now. So yeah, either way, like if I didn't take another photo of this trip, I'm more than satisfied with how things have gone. Today, again, was just fantastic for a relatively short burst of productivity, so to speak. Got a ton of video recorded, which I guess you would have watched by this point. And we'll go from there. So I got a chicken fajita and cheese wrap I'm going to scarf down before it gets totally cold. Get some hot tea in me, get settled for bed, and we'll catch you tomorrow. As it turned out, even after a good dinner and a decent night's rest, I decided to wrap up the trip a day early, at least as far as photography was concerned. Although part of me wishes I had toughed it out for one more day to try to get the afternoon light along Cottonwood Canyon Road that I'd been talking about since day 1, I listened to my body. Instead of chasing photos, I punched my tourist card and headed west to Zion to enjoy a relaxing scenic drive before heading back to Page for dinner, a hot shower, and a night of rest in a real bed before starting the long trek home. As I noted in the last segment of this video, I was just barely on the upswing from nearly 6 months of fatigue and other issues that affected my physical conditioning heading into this trip. I'm sure I could have forced my way through one more day, but I also know my creativity likely would have suffered for it, and with a day and a half of driving to get home, pushing myself to the point of exhaustion would probably not have been the best idea. I was also more than happy to end the trip on such a high note. Hackberry Canyon was absolutely stunning, and exploring a location I'd not visited on my previous trips was a fun way to put a cap on my week-long adventures. So I headed home feeling content, and once again fulfilled by my time spent alone in nature. I'll likely be adding at least 30 new images to my portfolio from this trip. Not a bad haul at all for 5 days in the field. Speaking of which, I plan to release my final selection of images in a free ebook, as I did for my March trip, so be sure to subscribe to my email newsletter to be among the first to know when it's available. I truly hope you've enjoyed this Utah video series, and if you'd like to help ensure I can continue to produce new work in the future and fund more trips like this one, you can do so by making a one-time donation via PayPal or by becoming a member of my Patreon. You can find the links to both in the description below. Your support is always greatly appreciated. And with that said, thanks for watching, and until next time, take care.